All right.
Okay.
Looks like we are live. So I said that it didn't give you any warning, and instead it told us to take a deep breath, which I think we can all use.
Yeah, we feel so relaxed.
All right, everybody. There are people actively coming in by the minute, so we are going to just mute ourselves for a second and probably give it another minute for people to come in, and then we'll start in about a minute or two. We're so excited to see all of you here. Celebrate Ashley. Yay! And we'd love if everybody would drop a congratulations to Ashley in the chat on this huge achievement, and also just chat with each other, react to poems. We love and to the conversation.
Tell us where you're calling in from.
Yeah, tell us where you're coming from. We love to hear that.
We love an active, bubbling chat.
And if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can put them in the Q&A. And so Kate and I will monitor that so that our lovely speakers don't have to, but we'll keep an eye on it. And yeah, I think we can probably get started. All right, you guys good to go? All right. Well, officially, welcome everybody. I'm Meg Reed. I'm the director of Hub City Press.
I'm Kate McMullen. I'm the assistant director of Hub City Press. Thanks for being here on a Tuesday.
It's been a long weekend. We've all forgotten who we are. So we are just overjoyed to be here at our second book launch of the fall, celebrating Reparations Now by Ashley M. Jones. This is Ashley's third book of poetry. I was thinking back today about, in case you guys don't know this, we published Ashley's first collection in 2017, Magic City Gospel. A tip, if you order both those books right now on our website, you get, if you order Reparations Now, you get Magic City Gospel for just $10. So heck of a bundle.
Look how cute.
So go do that. But we published Ashley's book back in 2017, and I swear to God, this is my memory. That Ashley wrote us back and said that she wanted to go ahead and have us publish that book on Labor Day weekend of 2016, or 20, whatever the time was before. And I sometimes have a good memory about these things, so I wonder if I'm right. But I just say it to say that Ashley and I have been on a long journey together, and she is now the Poet Laureate of Alabama as of last week, which, I mean, I'd say I'm surprised, but that would be a lie. And nothing that Ashley does surprises me, because she's just the most warm and capable poet and person that I know, and there's almost no one I would recommend for anything above Ashley, because I know what an incredible person she is, what an incredible community member she is, and what an incredible writer she is. So other people may not know this, but we had a long-standing tradition of not publishing multiple books by the same people, and really focusing on debuts. And that was something that we were kind of thinking about revisiting for years before the last few years. But then when Ashley came back and said, after publishing a second book to much acclaim, that I was deeply jealous of and mad that we didn't have. I'm kidding, but it's true. When she came back and said, I have another collection, and, would Hub City take a look at it? The immediate answer was yes, because we just love Ashley, and we think that she defines what a Hub City writer and Hub City author can be, and what we're trying to do for books from the South. So there was no question in my mind that we would publish Ashley's collection, and we're so proud to be your publisher and to be celebrating your book, your beautiful third book of poems, here tonight. Yay! And this is a beautiful package for those who haven't seen it. I mean, I'm saying we made it. We're bragging. It has flaps.
It's so nice.
It's purple, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's dreamy. So definitely go ahead and click that green button and order yourself a book, and maybe add in Magic City Gospel while you're at it. for only $10 because that's the steal of the century. So Kate and I, are going to kind of vanish into the background here and allow Ashley to talk with Kendra Allen, who has been so generous to appear tonight and be in conversation with Ashley and celebrate her and the book with us. Ashley, I'll give you some bio, and Kate will tell you about Kendra. Ashley is the almost current poet laureate of Alabama. She holds an MFA in poetry from Florida International University, and she's the author of Magic City Gospel and Dark Thing. Her poetry has earned several awards, including the Rona Jaffe Foundation Writers Award, the Silver Medal in Independent Publisher Book Awards, the Lena Miles Weaver Todd Prize for Poetry, a Literature Fellowship from the Alabama State Council on the Arts, Lucille Clifton Poetry Prize, and the Lucille Clifton Legacy Award. She was a finalist for the Ruth Lilly Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship in 2020. Her poems and essays appear are forthcoming in CNN Poetry, the Oxford American, Origins Journal, The Quarry by Split This Rock, and many others. She teaches at the Alabama School for the Fine Arts. She co-directs Penn Birmingham, and she is the founding director of the Magic City Poetry Festival. That's such an incredible bio. A really busy human. She has grades to put in tonight for high schoolers. So welcome, Ashley. We love you very much. And Kate, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm so excited that Kendra Allen is here with us tonight to chat with Ashley. Kendra Allen is the award-winning author of the essay collection When You Learn the Alphabet, which is amazing, and everyone should go pick it up. And the poetry collection, The Collection Plate, which came out this year. And the cover's gorgeous. I'm so excited to read this. I cannot wait to read her book, the newest one. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas, she loves laughing and leaving. Her work can be found in and on Repeller, Southwest, Review, Frontier, The Rumpus, and more. Please don't leave. We love you. We're so excited to virtually meet Kendra, and we're going to turn it over to y'all.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg and Kate. That was lovely. And yeah, just in case y'all didn't hear, go ahead and get Kendra's book. It's hardback. It's beautiful. And also her first collection, which I'm teaching from this year. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank all y'all for even thinking of me to do this. Ashley, you are like such an inspiration to like just Black writers, period. You do so much and you do it with all like grace. And I know you probably be tired, but like you keep chugging along. I'm so excited to be here. It was like no way I would have just been like no. I'm just honored that you even asked me to do this. I'm sorry. Like we met in Mississippi. Yep. What was that, like 2019?
Yeah, a lifetime ago. 2018? Ooh, 2019?
It was sometime one of them years. One of them years we could go outside and like do things. And when I met you, I think we went to go eat lunch, but like in between things. And we were talking, and you were talking about like Dark Thing at the time. And I was looking it up, like, while we eating, like, looking it up. And not once did you say anything about Sonia Sanchez, like, blurbing this book. Like, you were just talking about it like it's no big thing. And at that time, I was not, like, a poet. Like, I wasn't writing poetry. But I looked at you, and I was just like, man, like Ashley is amazing. Like Ashley's doing all these things. I should try to do this. We're both Southern girls, Alabama. Yep. I just wanted to tell you to your face, like, congratulations on becoming poet laureate. Not only are you like the youngest to do it, but you're the first Black person ever to do it. And I just hope that you're like super proud of yourself because so many people are extremely, extremely proud of you and like rooting for you and just happy to like share space and like write at the same time as you. So I just wanted to get that out the way.
Thank you. I mean, I'm blushing. Thank you so much.
Don't blush. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you about reparations now, which everybody should be ordering right now. Happy Pub Day as well. Another thing that we talked about during that time that I don't know if you remember is you were saying that you were looking for like a place where like you can call like your books a home and that like can continue to publish you. So I'm so glad to like see this sort of like manifest itself now. So like I said, be proud of yourself. Hub City Press is amazing. Thank y'all again for having me. And okay, so my first question that I want to get out the way. I was reading this book. I was reading it this morning. I read like a couple poems, and then I was like, okay, let me sit down and like actually just like dig into it. And I was reading it, and in the very first poem that I would like to call sort of like a prelude to the collection. I don't
Yeah.
know if you would say that. But yeah, I would call it a prelude. And it's a line in it. I'm big on lines. Like one line can make me just love a person forever. And in this first poem, it says for Donald Lewis Jones, which is for your dad. And in the second stanza, the first line says, listen, I want to tell you about a man who was a deliberate. And that line just stopped me in my tracks, like, of course,
Mm.
underlined,
Oh
circled, did all
wow.
my things. And when I think of you, I think of you as like a writer who is extremely deliberate. And I
Mm.
thought that was a perfect word for you to use for your dad and then like see it manifest in your work. So I think when I read that, every single poem afterwards sort of like unfolded in a way that felt like very intentional and very
Mm.
well placed and very just like very intentional. And I don't know, for me, I'm not a person who ever feels like I know what I'm doing on the page, but I
Mm.
feel like you in particular especially know like what you're doing. It's like it feels that way even though it might not be that way. But I guess like my question for you is how did you learn to like trust yourself as a writer in this collection versus Dark Thing and Magic City Gospel? Because this feels like a staple, and it feels like very concrete and like very confident and very sure of itself and sturdy in a way
Yeah.
where like I loved your other two collections, but this is my favorite. And it just felt like sturdy in a way, and I just wanted to ask you like, how did you learn to trust yourself as a writer, and do
Mhm.
you trust yourself as a writer, or is it just like faking it till you make it? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, let me just say thank you again. That's such a high compliment. And of course, I knew my dad was going to show up to my book launch. He's always popping up from the great beyond, from heaven. And so I'm glad that he's here. I'm glad that you brought him into the room. I learned to trust myself over time. It's been a constant process for me, just kind of knowing that my voice is enough and that what comes out of my mind is enough. And a lot of it has to do with my commitment to listening to the spirit. So for those listening, you didn't know you were going to get into sort of a sermon, but that's just the way that I roll. But for me, writing is like everything else in life, a spiritual practice. So when I learned to sort of step away from a purely academic way of writing and to step away from a desire to please the academic body and started just listening to what the spirit gave me, that's when I started to realize, okay, whatever I need is already in here. I can trust the ideas that I have. I can trust when something says, write me, I can write it and it's all right, you know. But it wasn't overnight. It definitely took many, many years. Because as you know, when you go through formal education, you kind of forget all of the spirit stuff, you know. So it took a lot of just living, growing, and discovering those writers who showed me the way. You know, Lucille Clifton, I never met her in life, but her spirit has been around me for a long time. And seeing the way that she approaches the page really has shown me through the years how to show up in a similar way, if that makes any sense. How to just be myself, to be Ashley on the page. And that's more than enough because she was just Lucille on the page. Of course, she wasn't just Lucille, but she was Lucille, and therefore I can be Ashley. So,
I think of like this quote of it's probably just like a southern thing, like it ain't on you, it's in you. Like, have you heard
yeah.
that before? I kind of feel like that's what I got from what you were saying about like it just being
Hmm.
like this spiritual thing that's like leading you and
Yeah.
like calling you. And I mentioned before, like I'm a writer who wake up in the middle of the night to like write phrases down that come to
Hmm.
me, and I can't lose it because if I lose it and I sleep through it, it's gone forever. It will never come back to me the way that I imagined it to be. And
Right.
you also talk about like being inspired by people like Lucille Clifton, but I also know that you're a person. We're mutually the same person when it comes to being inspired by music and musical influences. And I think throughout this collection, I see that a lot through like James Brown, the time loop poem. Love that. I also think when I met you, we were like riding to the school. We were listening to James Brown. We were listening to James Brown. I remember this like vividly. We were listening to James Brown, and we also were talking about like the New Edition movie. I remember this. But wait, did Ashley leave?
I'm here.
You hear me?
Please. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Hold on.
Okay. Y'all, Ashley's gonna read poems as well. Like, I want to give my little questions, and we're gonna be here for while we here, which is to hear Ashley read, because I can't wait.
It looks like she's just reconnecting. It's just an issue with her Wi-Fi, maybe.
Yeah.
We're just gonna wait a second.
It's been a trip.
Let's see. No, we are a year and a half into this, and we can't still can't Wi-Fi.
It's not your fault. Like, it's just the universe to be like, no.
It says that she's reconnecting, so
okay.
Kendra, this seems like the same problem that we had getting earlier. So
I had problems like in the midst of things before too, and I was like, it'll be bad.
We've all grown to be more patient. That's all. That's the best thing. Can you tell folks about your first book and your new one just quickly?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So When You Learn the Alphabet is an essay collection that came out in 2019, and it's just about being in academia and like fighting against that and not really wanting to be there, but like using my family as like a playing ground to talk about like the bigger issues of like race and things like and gender and sex and all that. And then this newest book is a poetry collection. Like I was saying, I would never call myself a poet like a year ago or maybe like 6 months ago, but I feel like now people say I am, and I have to just be like, okay. But this is how the collection played, and it came out. Ashley, okay, came out this year, and yeah, I'll read something from it later.
Perfect. Ashley, are you with us?
Oh gosh,
I'm here.
Okay. Okay,
we got you. All right,
Kendra covered for us. That's okay.
I got you, Ashley. Okay, so I was saying how like we're both like extreme. It's very clear like you're inspired by music and like not even just like in a inspirational way, but like in a internal like spiritual way, the way that you were mentioning earlier. And I think about like the James Brown poem, and I was saying like I was in your car, we were listening to James Brown, we were talking about New Edition, we were talking about like all these I'll be remembering stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cause like you probably said something that stuck with me, and I was like, oh, I remember the moment because the song was around us, and that's kind of like how I cultivate things. And when I was reading your poem about James Brown, when I was reading your poem about you mentioned like Ronald Isley in one of the poems.
Wow.
I'm
glad
like,
you know all my poems, Kendra.
I gotta study if I want to talk to you. And I just think about I just wanted to ask you, like, is it a certain artist or is it a certain like musical person who you always go back to, or are you like just a person who is open to like hearing new things? I feel like you're like the old soul who goes back into the musical timestamp thing more than like the newer things. And I just wanted to know what is it about like the past, because you do history really well in terms of like race, in terms of gender, in terms of southern things, in terms of music as well. So what is it about like our history and our past and where we're like birthed from and like where we come from that keeps you going back to it versus using like your poetry to like look ahead, if that makes sense? Not saying you don't look ahead, but yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my angle. We were talking before we came on about how particular I am about the audio visual, but it's going to be all right. But yeah, for music and really, I guess for everything, I don't really think of myself as purely in the present, so to speak. I really think of time as something that's more non-linear, I guess, than that. So that does manifest in my musical tastes. I'm also, I guess, what you'd call an old soul. And so the music that I grew up on was my parents' favorite music, the funk, soul, R&B, all that good stuff. And that's what I gravitate to even now. I don't necessarily find the same soul feeling in newer music. And that's no shade to the new artists. You know, they're doing great things. And there are some that I really love, but I really just don't hear that feeling. You know, like when you hear James Brown, that's a particular feeling that nobody else can give you, you know? When you hear those horns come in, when you hear actual instruments, we could even start there. That is something that you can't get from just the little beat board. And I have nothing against the beat board. I love the beat. Okay. But yeah, I definitely find myself reaching back in that way. But also, I think maybe I was alive in another body in older times. You know, I feel like I belong in those times more so than I do here now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you do that like so well. I just feel like you have your hand on the pulse of like that feeling of that music. Like the poem where you were like, "This is for the If," and Al Green, "Simply
Yeah.
Beautiful." When I read that title, I was like, "Ma'am, like first of all, I know exactly what you're talking about because I
That's
listen to that
it.
song all the time,
Hmm.
and it's just like that feeling that comes over your body, like when you hear "If I Gave You My Love," you just like,
Yep.
whew, I have to
Yep.
breathe.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
spirit. Like I said before, the spirit is moving in that song and in all of these songs. You know, that are in the book and that exist in that special golden time of music.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so of course I have to ask you a fashion question, but I'm
Yes.
gonna because to me you're not only like the best dressed writer that I know,
Oh,
but like you're one of the best dressed people that I know.
wow.
And
Thank
you
you.
do it so effortlessly. Like if you ever want a side hustle as a stylist, you could make a lot of money because you are
I
like
want to.
see, and I can't wait to see that for you. Like I just see like a lot in your future. So I just think that like you are like so effortless. Like we were talking about effortlessness early. What did I just say? Effortlessness earlier, and I think like your style is like just so effortlessly. I can't say that word. What
It's
is
okay.
happening? So effortless. And I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to know. When it comes to fashion, how tied to it is it to your like creative process, particularly when it comes to form? Because I'm thinking of
Hmm.
because your form is like so stylized, and I think of you as like a super stylish person, especially
Okay.
like him for our Jesus in the Holy Tow Truck. If you haven't seen this poem, look at
Yes.
this. Like, come on now. Look, and it's just like so much that you do with form, and I just wanted to know like do they speak to each other style in your like physical body and style in like your writer body, do they coexist or do you not even see them connected?
That's such a good question. I've never been asked that before. And at first I was thinking no, but I think the answer is really yes, actually. Because the way that I think about dressing myself is kind of similar to the way that I think about dressing a poem. So with poems, there's all these different forms that you can use, and they do speak to your content. You know, you're kind of putting it in the correct container or putting the right outfit on the poem so that it can show up in the way that it needs to. It's like that poem you just referenced. I borrowed, have to give credit, this form from Mary Seabist, I think is how someone said you say her last name. I've been saying Seibist this whole time, which maybe is a Southernism. I don't know. I'm so sorry, ma'am. But um, I borrowed that form because it fit the content so perfectly. The experience that I had writing this poem was that I literally saw tow trucks everywhere I went one summer of 2019, and I had never noticed that they have this like cross on the back of them. Never noticed it in all my years of seeing tow trucks. And for whatever reason, as I kept becoming the car following a tow truck, not because my car was broken, it's just they were there. I said, okay, God, what is this? Because this cross is looking very Jesus-y. What is happening?
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, what kind of form? How will the poem look? What is the shape of the poem? And that's another weird thing about me. Like when I get an idea for a poem or when the idea is given to me, I do see a shape in my mind. Like I saw the burst, in my mind, because that was the correct outfit or the correct form to demonstrate or to represent the endlessness of God, but also the endlessness of the questions that we have about God, and the endlessness of love as well. So that connects to how I dress my body, in that I too am trying to put myself in the proper container for whatever day or whatever event that I'm going to. And maybe it all goes back to how much I loved playing with Barbies as a girl. And I spent hours just dressing and redressing them and doing their hair and imagining where they're going to go. And I do that now with myself. I mean, I am not a Barbie, but I think, okay, what are my accessories? What's my look? What's my theme, for the day? And the same is true for the poems. The idea comes and it's like, well, how am I going to dress you so you can come and show the world what it is that you're talking about? So, yeah.
Speaking of Barbies, I think you also in this collection, it's a lot of desirability and like beauty politics that are being discussed in terms of like Southern Black women and Southern Black girls in particular. And I think you do so in like such a like careful and like caring way that we don't really see a lot. And I think I'm always thinking about desirability and desirability politics and like what it means to not be desirable in this world, especially as like a Black woman, and what that grants you to be seen as desirable, like what you are gifted just because somebody finds you attractive, and what is like stripped away from you because someone doesn't find you attractive based on like all these external factors like colorism and featureism and texturism and like all this. And I love how you put it in the container of like a Barbie doll, and you have a line like you start poems fire. Like, I'm a person who needs to be immediately stimulated. Like, I need to be immediately stimulated before I even continue reading. And every one of your poems, like, it starts, what is my favorite first line? I'm gonna find it because I had a couple of them, but I read like this first line and then I waited like 15 minutes to read the rest of the poem because I kept reading the first line. Okay, this is the self returns a year later, and this is the first line. When I wept to him, I didn't know my soul was slipping from between my teeth, floating out to look at me. First of all, you don't just start a poem like that and like continue speaking. Like, you didn't just say what you just said.
I'm sorry.
But it's another one. That was my second favorite, but this is my favorite, and it's purple. I know it's purple because I made it a point to make it purple. I don't know why. I'm gonna find it. 1 second. Where is it? Okay. Okay, so it's summer vacation in the subjunctive. Okay, and you said, this is the first line. If I were a woman, like that's all it says. And so that just brings me back to like this idea of desirability. Like I said, it's always on my mind of what it grants us, what it strips from us, what beauty politics instilled in us from such an early age. I know you have a line where you say your mother always called you beautiful. And I just think how important that is. So I just wanted to know, for you as like a young Black Southern woman, how much is it to always go back to the idea of like self-worth in the external sense? Because I feel like we always talk about like self-love and like self-care as like an internal thing, but it's hard to feel that on the outside if you're not validated on the outside. And I think you do a great job and blending those two things together, because we could say like it starts from the inside all day, but if you're like you said in that poem, like you go outside and you know like the world's going to strip that away from you, how important is it for you to like always use like the external beauty of like Black women in a way that isn't commodified, if that's the word? Yeah,
I mean, that's a hard question. I definitely have had my own struggles with self-esteem and living in this society, which doesn't always allow Black women to feel beautiful as a complete sentence, not just you're beautiful, the end, but you're beautiful because you have XYZ alteration, to you. And so I think maybe it really goes all the way back to those Barbies that I used to play with. Of course, it goes back to my mom. Obviously, thankful that my mom is so beautiful because I look like her. The genetics are there. But also, she did this amazing thing for us as children, and she made sure that we only played with dolls who looked like us. Now, from the outside looking in, some could say, "Oh, didn't she want you to be, colorblind?" I hate this term. It's not only is it ableist, but it's not accurate for what maybe the people actually mean. What she wanted was for us to look at these dolls which, any child would look at and think, "Oh, this is what I want to be. This is, beauty. This is perfection." And of course, there's some issues with Barbie. We don't have time to get into that. But these dolls that children would look at, if they look like you, then you're going to think, "Oh, I also am perfect. I also can do anything. I also am beautiful." And so she surrounded us, and my dad too, surrounded us with just images of blackness. Our Santa was black. I'll never forget, my dad painted our Santa brown. And I was like, "Whoa, Santa can be just like me." When we talked about God could be black. We learned that our God could look however we wanted him to, them to. We didn't have to abide by this sort of, you know, traditional Jesus that we might have seen in pictures, or in paintings. And all of that really does matter, to be able to look in the mirror and see something that you're proud of, and to look out beyond the mirror, look on TV, look in books, look across the street and see something that, or someone that looks like you, who is celebrated. That really does mean a lot for your internal self-worth as well. I think one of the reasons that, although I've had my self-esteem issues, I've never like gone off the deep end, because I always could return to, "Oh wait, but being black is good though." That's what I learned. Like, it's not the blackness that's my problem. That's never going to be the problem. It's all these other things, So
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I want to hear some poems from you from reparations now.
all right.
And if you have a question for Ashley, please drop them in the ask box. But yeah, we're gonna turn it over to Ashley because I know we're all here to hear some poems. And I can't wait.
All right. Well, I guess I will begin by saying that I've prepared to read 5 poems to you today, and hopefully we make good time. We'll see. But I wanted to start actually with a poem that Kendra referenced, the poem that I wrote for my dad, because I also was determined to have him in the room tonight, since he's not physically able to be here because he's in heaven. I wanted to read this poem that I wrote for his funeral earlier this year. And I will say, a secret, perhaps, for those who have the book, this poem is actually in a form. This is an acrostic poem, which maybe we remember from elementary school, and it has been, degraded to it's a kid's poem, but it's not. It's a poem for anyone. And I have to also credit the poet Faisal Mohuyuddin, who, on the Poetry Magazine podcast earlier this year, reminded me about the acrostic. He is a master of them. So this is for my dad. For Donald Lewis Jones, Chief Jones, if you know. Dad, every blade of grass wears your name. On the wind, you laugh in great swaths of air. Now the days feel more like years because you're gone. Only memories hold your voice and the crack of your knees stretching in the night. Listen, I want to tell you about a man who was deliberate, delicate in his loving, complete in his care. Let me show you my skin, my blood, which is his. Even the sunrise I hold with his eyes, which are my heart, which is his. In the quiet times, we wonder where you are. Sometimes feels like your truck will turn the corner just in time for dinner. Your keys chiming up the stairs. Out in the garden, your plants still grow. Now we will give them water and time. Every season, a harvest started by your hands, showing your love, all encompassing, forever. That's for my dad. who was the very best dad, is the very best dad ever. So I want to transition to a pair of sonnets. And the reason that I want to read these two is because on my Instagram takeover today with Hub City, I mentioned, or I showed a picture of me and Sister Sonia Sanchez when I was so lucky to be able to go up to St. Mary's College of Maryland to receive the Lucille Clifton Legacy Award. We had a program during the day. I got to spend the whole day with her, which, again, we don't have time for me to go into. It was amazing. But when we did this early event during that day, they asked me to read some poems, and I had been kind of scrutinizing, like, oh, what am I going to read? Sonia's going to be there. Like, I don't want to read something terrible, in
the
front
pressure.
of her. Right. No, yeah. So I was, I guess, very obsessed with these poems that I had written. I think they were the newest ones I had written, and every writer knows whatever you just finish is usually your favorite thing. So I pulled out these poems to read, and when I finished reading them, the whole time, there's a picture that I posted on that Instagram post where she's sitting with her eyes closed, and she's so small. She's a tiny, tiny woman, but she's sitting with her eyes closed like this. And of course, I couldn't see her at the time I was just reading, but looking at the picture, I could see how she looked. And when I finished reading, she said, well, now you all see why I chose our dear sister to win this award. And I was like, what? It was amazing. I could have just gone home right then. I was like, well, there it is. I'm done. My career is finished, complete. So I'll read these poems to you, long preamble. And they are about lynching, actually. So just, I guess, a content warning, there is violence in these poems. And it's about Mary Turner and Stephon Clark, who I realized when writing these poems, their lynchings were 100 years apart, almost to the day. And each poem begins with an epigraph, which has some information about who they were. Mary, don't you weep, or Mary Turner resurrected. When Mary Turner threatened to press charges for the wrongful lynching of her husband in Brooks County, Georgia, on May 19, 1918, she was strung upside down, her clothes were burned off, and her unborn baby was cut from her womb and stomped to death. Turner was shot repeatedly, and she and her baby were buried close by their murder site. Like all resurrections, it began with blood, dirt, unending light. The Georgia moss punctuated by camellias, their white hurt stretching across Brooks County. No blight to stain their leaves, just the ash falling bloody from Mary's emblazoned womb. Her baby, a fire, its single soft cry still igniting the air. Could it be that even this baby, even this one-breathed angel, was crucified to save us all? Maybe. Maybe Mary and her baby flew up from death in sweaty Georgia, her shallow grave shaken loose, finally free, resurrected. It turns out, all along, hell was earth. What else could she name that rock covered in leaf and loam, not loving, not hopeful, and most certainly not home? Stephon, don't you moan, or to serve and protect. 22-year-old father of two, Stephon Clark, was shot 20 times on March 19, 2018, by Sacramento police in his grandmother's backyard. The gun police claim to have seen him carrying was his iPhone. Is there a police protocol for grace? For the moment between show us your hands and shoot? That night, policeman, servant of the gun, did you give space for a man's innocence to bloom? Despite the loaded weight of your finger on the trigger, despite how the night painted that man bigger, made him a giant with a fireball in his hands, despite the loud explosion of your fright. Innocence is for softer things, an open, empty palm, a blooming flower, a spread of rocks becoming sand. Silly civilization. You thought we'd evolved beyond abuse of power. But again, a pruning. What a flower you were, Stefan, and what holiness in your body opening, petaled in the white helicopter light. This an Armageddon of bullets, flowers, stars, stripes. That's those. And I think I'm going to skip to the title poem because it's a little bit longer. So I was going to read a couple others, but I think I'll just end with this poem, which I wrote after reading the entirety of George Wallace's 1963 inaugural address, which is a trip. I don't know if I recommend it or not. It's interesting. But I found myself reading it and I kept like underlining things and I was like, this sounds a lot like number 45. We don't use his name. Sounds like things that he said last week, as I was reading, I'm like, oh, he said that yesterday, which I think highlights that some of these progress narratives that we hear or that we say ourselves are maybe not as true as we'd like them to be. Our country, unfortunately, has not examined its history or its present for that matter. We're very into just moving to the next phase, even before we've actually healed, which is where reparations come in, repair, healing. So this poem is sort of a collage poem in that it uses, in some of the sections, it uses George Wallace's words exactly. In some sections, it uses his words arranged to make a different sort of stanza. And in some sections, the words are mine. And I think you'll be very able to know which words are mine and which ones are his. Reparations now, reparations tomorrow, reparations forever. Oh, and I should say, for those who don't know, there's this like saying that for reparations, maybe it was like our first iteration of what we were owed was 40 acres for each Black person and a mule. Keep that in mind. And this is a 5-part poem. Part 1, the governor speaks. Before I begin, patience. My heart, by which I mean my anxious country, will never forget the folks we beat. The little lady who couldn't see too well, the blessed opposition, the vote. This debt, this duty to every man, woman, and child. No Black shall have his livelihood, his future. We have stolen it away with our happy money, Jefferson Davis's loving blood. 2, Mo Money interlude. Money got mo problems. Money got a Maserati. Money got mo money. Money got your mama and your daddy too. Money got no expiration date. Money got pennies and paper cuts. Money got a white man on its face. Money got faces. Money is nothing Black. Even the ink is green. Money don't know your name. Money paid the price for our sins, for our freedom. Money got math we can't learn. Money says it trusts in God. What God trusts money? Jesus, money, and Joseph. Money descended from Ham. Money watches us naked. Money curses us, rich and poor. Money said, separate but equal. Money said, 3/5 a man. Money said, 77 years ago. 3, altar call. The poet reproduces Wallace's exact words. In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. 4, praise break. The governor channels the spirit of his God. Riot. Children, you can write that down. Mississippi was a B-29 bomber in this war to stop residential integration. Hypocrisy. Let us send this message. We, tyranny, shall put our heel on the neck of Washington, of those insipid judges who send smoke signals to the White House, those who are not worth the honor of their race. Hear me, Southerners. Your hearts live in the soil of Dixieland. Your rock-ribbed patriotism, your flaming spirit for segregation and freedom has been blessed by God. Alabama is the center of the world. God has given this to us, a heritage of unimpeachable authority and power. This ungodly government, these degenerates are the very opposite of Christ. Children, say a prayer for our dollars, our founding fathers, our faith, our power. 5, a case for reparations. When, Governor, can we enjoy the full richness of the great American dream? My grandmother was a sharecropper. My grandfather beat his black wife and black children. My uncle was arrested for a crime he didn't commit. In America, even the shadows of black people are black enough to hide all innocence. Some nights, I dream of being killed like Emmett Till or Trayvon Martin or Sandra Bland or insert black person's name here. Some nights, I insert my name there. Is that the American dream? Governor, president, mayor, boss man, woman with a cell phone or a police badge or a bank account and the skin tender enough to make murder legal. When will you be tired of the taste of black blood? Sometimes I'm singing a song and you make that feel like death. Sometimes I'm dancing a dance and you make that feel like shame. Sometimes I'm sitting on my porch just trying to eat a damn melon and you make that feel like I'm selling my black soul. My parents told me I could be anything, even God. That's the least I'm owed. To know I'm worth heaven, yes, but also worth a life on earth. My mother told us we were pretty enough to be dolls, pretty enough to be praised in the book of Barbie. That's the least I'm owed. A face, skin, hair, so obviously, inherently, objectively beautiful. It's frozen in plastic and sold to kids all over America to hug and love and look at with the eyes of dreams. What, you think all I want is money? What, you think money can ever repay what you stole? Give me land. Give me all the blood you ripped out of our backs, our veins. Give me every snapped neck and the noose you wove to hoist the body up. Give me the screams you silenced in so many dark and lustful rooms. Give me the songs you said were yours, but you know came out of our lips first. Give me back Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers. Give me back the beauty of my hair, the swell of my hips, the big of my lips. Give me back the whole Atlantic Ocean. Give me a never-ending blue and a mule. There it is.
Stop playing with Ashley in these streets. Thank you so much for sharing that poem with us. It's so necessary. Like I said, I'm so happy to be able to share this moment with you. I'm so happy to hear those poems. I'm going to turn it over to the questions now, but thank you, Ashley. You do not miss ever. Like, I have never read a poem by you. I've been like, oh, this was all right. I would read it and be like, oh, I got to do something different. So thank you.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hub City Press again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kendra.
That was incredible, Ashley. We want
and Kendra, thank you so
Kendra,
much for
thank you so
much.
We're just funneling, we're just being a fan of Ashley's and interacting with the work so beautifully and so just so smartly. I don't know if I should know if I'm on the screen here. Ashley, I would love to actually, building off your last poem, if you could, you did such a great post at the end of your takeover about all the different kinds of reparations that you think the book sort of encompasses. I don't want to make you, people can go look at the IG post, which is amazing. but I just wanted you to speak because it is, it's a title that's going to grab. I love that it has an exclamation point. That's been super fun for us. I love that exclamation point.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was another question I had because when I first started like literally reading poems and like poetry, I had a professor tell me I wrote a poem with like a lot of exclamation points. It was all like bolded, and they were like, "That's like not what you do in poetry." So imagine my delight when I saw full like caps locked exclamation points on the cover. Yeah. So I just want to say thank y'all for doing that. Like, thank you.
Well, I do think, so we can build that out into like all of our question about the title of the book and what it means to you and why we had to have that exclamation point and all that stuff. If you want to touch on that a little bit before we wrap up.
Sure. I mean, I will say, first of all, I, as a teacher, don't believe in telling people what they shouldn't do in a poem, because who am I to tell you what the poem is telling you to do? Honestly, I mean, that's not my business. I'm here to just help you, show you some examples of other poems and, just help to refine, but I'm not here to fix anything. So yeah, I'm glad that I have that exclamation point as well, because the title, Reparations Now, I'm not whispering it. I'm saying, no, it's now. Like, we need it right now, yesterday, years ago, we needed it. And what reparations means to me is much more than just, the 40 acres, the mule, a check from the government. It means give us back the ability to be alive and free to be alive. Give us the ability to have joy. It's small things and it's big things. It's not just, it is, please don't shoot me as I've called you for help, police or any other person who decides to take my life. But it's also allow me to walk into a room wearing my hair in an afro or in any style and nobody comments on it. Just let it be hair. It means, taking an English class and not having to scrape for the Black person on the syllabus. It means walking through a store and not feeling like I put my hands in my pockets. I feel that way still. I've never stolen anything in my life. I've never stolen anything, but I'm always self-conscious of that because of what has been stolen, my peace of mind, And these things go all the way back to when we were stolen from Africa and brought here. We were robbed of so much. And reparations means the ability for us to live a whole life again, without the hand, the foot, the whatever of the white patriarchy, the oppressive forces stepping on us or just blowing out our light in some way. So that's what it means to me. And it's very multifaceted. It requires a lot of self-work to repair what has been broken, and it requires self-work from everybody. It's not just we have to, find within ourselves our own worth. It's those who have descended from those who oppressed us and who actively are still oppressing us. They need to do that self-work as well and figure out, where do you play into this lineage of violence in our country? How can you alter your actions today? It can be as simple as changing your syllabus. It could be as simple as, not crossing the street when you see a Black person coming. It could be as simple as not reaching into someone's hair. There are things that you can do, to actively repair or enact reparations. And of course, the government has a lot to do as well. That will take centuries probably. We're just starting to, deal with giving land back to our indigenous family whose land was stolen. So we're a long ways away, I think, from full reparations on a political, governmental scale. But there are ways that we can do that work, that repairing work, on a smaller scale as well. So that's what the book is asking for: reparations in all ways, racial, personal, any kind of thing that has been broken, we need to repair it.
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Ashley, I want to end on asking you and thanking you both for such a wonderful conversation. The chat is just full of so many exclamation points.
Love it. Love to see it.
And you guys have it's just been a wildly wonderful way to spend a Tuesday. So we thank you again. And go buy both their books and support them and celebrate, collaborations now with us. And I want to close, Ashley, by asking you about this little job appointment thing that you got last week. This very, very large historic appointment. I want to hear from you what your goal, because as I said, I know you're 100% capable of whatever you put your mind to, as we know. Kendra knows this too. What is your plan for the people of Alabama and poetry in the next 4 years?
Well, it's so funny. I always have said to people, I'm never going to hold a government office. That's not my ministry. And here we are, in a government office. But my plan is really to continue what I've already been doing here, which is just to create spaces for people here in Alabama to do what they're already doing: writing poetry, reading poetry, celebrating poets. I want to work with people of all ages. I'm hoping to get into all the schools, talk to the children, let them know that they can do anything that they want to do. There is no limit to what they can do. But also I want to talk to the adults and our senior citizens as well, because they also need an outlet. There are so many things going on in the world and have been going on forever. They didn't start in 2020, as so many people like us to believe. Things have been going on for a very long time. And for me, art has helped me to process these things. And I feel like all of us, I always say poetry is for everybody, like feminism. It's for everybody. It can help us to heal ourselves and to understand and to process and to create empathy as well. So I'm hoping over the next 4 years, I can create programs where people can just explore poetry, hear poetry. And I hope to also shine a light, or continue to shine a light, on what's happening in Alabama. We are, in my mind, a literary destination. So I want everybody all over the world to feel that way. By the end of my 4 years, people need to be just banging down our door to say, how can we get into Birmingham, into Huntsville, into Montgomery, into Florence, into all these places in Alabama that have amazing literary programs going on. So that's the hope.
Amazing.
Can't wait.
Well, we are so excited to watch you embark on that journey and the journey of this book, which has already been in the Washington Post book world from Ron Charles. It's been has a star review from Publishers Weekly. You're going to be on NPR soon. I can leak that to the world. So keep an ear out for that interview coming, and so much more I know is in store for this book. So thank you once again to Ashley. Congratulations. Thank you to Kendra for being so wonderful. Silver pen signing. We love that. And get your copy of Reparations now. Have a great night, everybody, and thank you again.
Congrats,
Congrats.
Thank you.
But this was also wonderful.
Virtual hug.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.